You've been living for the opinions of people who will forget your name the moment you leave the room. You've twisted yourself into shapes that don't fit your soul, hoping someone would finally see you as worthy. And when they didn't, you blamed yourself. You thought there was something wrong with you, but Carl Jung understood something most people never grasp in their entire lifetime. When you become unreachable, you don't disappear from the world. You become real for the first time. Most people spend their entire existence being everyone's version of themselves, except their own. They check their phone obsessively, waiting for validation that never comes. They replay conversations in their head, wondering if they said the right thing, wore the right clothes, laughed at the right moments. They measure their worth by how many people like them, follow them, need them. And in that constant reaching outward, they lose the only thing that ever mattered, themselves. You see it everywhere. The person who can't make a decision without consulting 10 different people. The one who changes their entire personality depending on who's in the room. The individual who apologizes for existing, for taking up space, for having needs. They're not living, they're performing. And the performance is exhausting because no matter how perfectly you play the role, the applause is never enough. There's always another audience to please, another expectation to meet, another version of yourself to become. Jung called this the persona, the mask you wear to fit into society, to be accepted, to be safe. But here's what most people don't realize. The mask eventually becomes a prison. What starts as protection becomes suffocation. You forget there's a face beneath the mask. You forget you have a choice. And one day you wake up and realize you've spent decades being a stranger to yourself, living someone else's life, chasing someone else's dream. Becoming unreachable isn't about arrogance or isolation. It's not about building walls so high that no one can touch you. It's about finally understanding that your worth doesn't live in other people's hands. That their opinions of you are not facts, that their rejection of you is not evidence of your inadequacy. It's about pulling your energy back from the external world and planting it firmly in the soil of your own being. Think of it like this. Imagine you're a radio tower, constantly broadcasting your signal in every direction. You're desperate for someone to tune in, to hear you, to validate that you exist. And you keep broadcasting louder and louder, hoping someone will finally respond. But the more you broadcast, the weaker your signal becomes. You're giving away so much power that there's nothing left at the source. Now imagine you stop broadcasting. You turn the signal inward. Suddenly all that energy that was scattered across 1,000 different frequencies comes back home. It consolidates, it amplifies, it becomes so strong that people start feeling it without you saying a word. That's what Jung meant by individuation, the process of becoming who you actually are, not who everyone else needs you to be. And it requires something most people are terrified to do. You have to become unreachable to the versions of you that don't serve your truth. You have to withdraw your presence from spaces that demand you betray yourself. You have to stop answering every call, responding to every demand, showing up for every expectation. If this message resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and join a community of awakened souls walking the same journey of spiritual alignment. Here's what happens when you finally make that shift. First, the noise stops. Not the noise around you, but the noise inside you. That constant inner dialogue that sounds like a committee of critics, all arguing about what you should do, who you should be, how you should show up. It fades. Because when you're no longer trying to be everything for everyone, you don't need to debate every decision with 1,000 imaginary voices. You know what feels right. Not because someone told you, but because your inner compass finally has space to speak. Second, people start reacting strangely. The ones who benefited from your availability, from your eagerness to please, from your willingness to shrink yourself for their comfort, suddenly feel threatened. They'll accuse you of changing. They'll say you've become cold, distant, selfish. And here's the truth they won't tell you. They're right. You have changed. You've stopped being their mirror, their emotional crutch, their validation dispenser. And they're uncomfortable because they have to face themselves now. Without you there to absorb their projections, they have to deal with their own emptiness. That's not your responsibility. It never was. Third, you realize how much energy you've been hemorrhaging your entire life. It's like you've been carrying 50 people on your back, and suddenly you put them down. The lightness is disorienting at first because you've been so used to the weight. But give it time. That energy comes flooding back. The creativity you thought you lost, the passion you buried under obligations and expectations, the dreams you abandoned because they didn't fit someone else's vision for your life, they all resurface because they were never gone. They were just suffocated under the weight of trying to be reachable to people who had no business touching your soul. Jung understood that the journey to self is not about adding more. It's about subtracting everything that isn't you, every false belief, every adopted identity, every borrowed dream. Layer by layer, you peel back the conditioning until you reach something solid, something that doesn't change based on who's looking, something that doesn't need external validation to know it's real. That's your true self. And the moment you touch it, everything shifts. You start showing up differently in the world, not because you're trying to, but because you're no longer pretending. There's a presence that emerges when someone stops seeking approval. A quiet confidence that doesn't need to announce itself. People feel it before you speak. They sense that you're not available for their games, their manipulations, their projections, and it either attracts them deeply or repels them immediately. Both responses tell you exactly what you need to know. The ones who are repelled were never meant for your journey. They were attracted to your compliance, not your essence. And when your compliance ends, so does their interest. Let them go. Not with anger or resentment, but with the understanding that some people are only meant to walk with the version of you that you're leaving behind. They can't come where you're going because they refuse to do the work you're doing. The ones who are attracted to this new energy are different. They don't need you to be smaller so they can feel bigger. They don't require constant reassurance or performance. They meet you at your depth because they've done their own work. They've become unreachable to the world's demands on their soul too. These are your people, not the ones who knew you when you were performing, but the ones who recognize you now that you're real. Think of a mountain. At the base, it's crowded. Everyone can reach it, tourists, casual hikers, people taking selfies for social media. The mountain doesn't refuse them, but it doesn't change its shape to accommodate them either. As you climb higher, the crowd thins, the air gets thinner, the path gets steeper. Most people turn back because the climb requires more than they're willing to give. But those who continue, who push through the discomfort, who commit to the ascent, they reach the summit. And at the summit, there's a different kind of connection, not based on convenience or entertainment, but on shared determination. That's what happens when you become unreachable. You ascend, and only those willing to climb can meet you there. The rest will wave from the bottom, and that's okay. Jung spoke of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject and hide, but he also spoke of the gold in the shadow. The power we've been afraid to claim, the voice we've been afraid to use, the boundaries we've been afraid to set. When you become unreachable, you're not hiding from the world. You're integrating your shadow. You're reclaiming the parts of yourself you gave away in exchange for acceptance. The anger you suppressed to be likable, the truth you swallowed to keep the peace. The dreams you abandoned to fit in, all of it comes back, and yes, it's uncomfortable. Because reclaiming your power means others lose their power over you, and they won't give that up without a fight. They'll test you, they'll push your boundaries to see if you're serious. They'll guilt you, manipulate you, accuse you. And this is where most people break. They think, maybe I was wrong, maybe I'm being too harsh, maybe I should go back to how things were. But you can't. Once you've tasted sovereignty, submission becomes unbearable. Once you've felt what it's like to honor yourself, abandoning yourself becomes impossible. The door only opens one way, and you've already walked through it. Here's what most spiritual teachings won't tell you. Becoming unreachable is lonely at first, not because you're alone, but because you're no longer participating in the collective delusion that external validation equals internal worth. And when you stop playing that game, you realize how many of your relationships were built on that foundation, how many connections were transactional, how many people loved the service you provided, not the soul you are. It's devastating, and it's necessary, because on the other side of that devastation is clarity. You see who actually sees you. You see who stays when there's nothing to gain. You see who loves you for your being, not your doing. And those relationships, however few, are worth more than 1,000 superficial connections. Quality replaces quantity. Depth replaces breadth. Jung said the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But he didn't say it was easy. He didn't say people would cheer you on. He didn't say the path would be crowded with supporters. He said it was a privilege. Because most people never take the journey. They live their entire lives as someone else's projection, and they die without ever meeting themselves. You're different. You're here because something in you knows there's another way. Something in you is tired of the performance. Something in you is ready to come home to yourself. And that journey begins the moment you decide that your peace matters more than their approval. The moment you choose internal alignment over external validation. The moment you become unreachable to anything that asks you to abandon yourself. What happens next is not a destination. It's a practice. Every day, you'll have opportunities to slip back into old patterns, to people please, to seek validation, to shrink yourself for someone else's comfort. And every day, you'll have the choice to honor yourself instead. Some days you'll succeed, some days you'll fall back into old habits. And that's okay. This isn't about perfection, it's about direction. As long as you keep choosing yourself, you're on the path. As long as you keep pulling your energy back from where it doesn't belong, you're doing the work. As long as you keep honoring your truth over their expectations, you're becoming who you were always meant to be. Unreachable to the world's demands. Unshakable in your truth, undeniable in your presence. This is what Jung meant. This is what really happens when you become unreachable. You stop being everyone's version of you, and you finally become the only version that matters, your own. If this resonated with something deep inside you, if you felt the truth of these words in your bones, don't just passively consume and move on. Like this video, subscribe to the channel and become part of a movement. Not for the algorithm, but for your own alignment. Because every time you choose yourself, you give someone else permission to do the same. And that's how we change the world. One awakened soul at a time. To celebrate your arrival, we've prepared a gift, a guide to help you navigate your inner transitions with clarity and elegance. Alignment. 7 Phases of Consciousness Awakening. Download your copy from the link in the description.